Those of you who got an invite, welcome to Nerd Prime.
No matter where in the world you are, we're all Nerds International. With the hyphen. Nerds International proudly presents.
We want to take you on a quest for knowledge. One that will take us from ancient medieval fantasy across the far reaches of space to the distant future. To many savage worlds.
We're going live in 5, 4, 3.
What about 2 and 1?
Welcome to the Wild Eye Podcast, episode 35. This is a podcast dedicated to pinnacle entertainment savage worlds aimed at beginners and veterans alike. What's happening today, Eric? Mr. Lamoureux? You sound a little different. You've got some kind of new setup. Apparently your computer blew up. Too much porn.
Yeah, that's what happens. That's exactly what happened, Gary. No,
You got
it's just
virus or something?
we're not here to talk about that and go on tangents that nobody cares about. So let me turn this question back at you, Gary. What's going on with you Sunday game, man? I heard some sad news there.
Yeah, it took a dive. My children are growing up. They're moving out of the house. My son's actually not even here today. Even my Colombian student's not even next door. He went to his buddy's house overnight, so he's having a sleepover. I had to put a pin in my Sunday game.
Was that your
Very
Deadlands
sad.
game?
Oh, it was my Deadlands game, yes. You know how... here, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you some solid GM advice. If you ever play a Pirates game, don't let one of your players be the captain of the ship, because everybody wants to be the captain, and they're going to spend all of their time, effort, and energy trying to kill the captain, who's one of their friend players, in order to be the captain, to get killed by their other friends. And that's the whole entire, and your entire game will just go downhill from there. Don't let your player be captain.
Harrison and I played in a game at a convention
Yeah.
where we all played gobos, and one of us was the gobbo captain, and everybody was trying to become the captain. And there was actually a mechanic in-game where you scored points, and whoever had the most points would automatically become the captain. So I'd say just go with that. Give them a mechanic to play within the game to become captain.
Yeah, that doesn't involve them killing each other. Then that way
Yeah.
they won't end up fighting. This was all based around reputation. So everyone was trying to do cool stuff in the game to become the captain. So every time you scored a raise or helped another player by giving them a Benny, you would get more reputation. And it was awesome because everyone was getting really competitive by trying to be the coolest player at the table. It was really cool.
And that's the problem is I'm playing with 15-year-old kids who just think it's funny to do whatever they can to go out of their way, excuse me, to sidetrack the mission and just take out CJ, the captain.
Yeah,
that was my entire, until there was fireballs cast and a boat sunk.
That's how I play.
Well, I mean, but the question I have is, was he the only player, or he was like the leader of that group of players, and now that he's not playing, you don't want to run a game for the other ones?
Well, I mean, if you really want to know how the whole deal goes, after the 50 Fathoms campaign and the stuff between CJ and Andrew, it seems like they were always at odds. And then because CJ is an older guy, and there's the three friends of my son's friends, it was always the three of them versus him. So there was always this tension at the table where the three of them were trying to constantly somehow screw over CJ, whether it was in 50 Fathoms or whether it was in Deadlands. They were always trying to do something to him, trying to take him out for something like that. So that entire, it always set a tone for the entire campaign. And then once my son was like, I got too much stuff to do with cadets and other things, I was like, between that and the tension with CJ, I was like, I'm just going to pull the pin for a little bit, get some stuff done, work on my inner self. And yeah, that's what I've been doing. Taking some yoga.
That Savage Rifts, that was just in between when your son was on vacation, right?
Yeah. CJ was DMing that, and Savage Rifts isn't the kind of thing that you want to jump right into, especially if you've never DM'd before. I mean, learning the system and then going from that system, because Savage Rifts is almost like a system on top of a system. Well, I mean, it is a system on top of a system, but there's so many different rules to Savage Rifts that even if you know Savage Worlds, I mean, that's why I do the Savage Rifter podcast, because there's literally like an entire. It's almost like a new game. Is what I find.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Well, it's too bad. Maybe you'll find some more players, and maybe you can reboot 50 Fathoms with brand new players. How about that? Look at it on the bright side.
Well, I sort of look up to you as a father figure, Gary. So if you need a new son to play in your game, maybe.
Yeah, we'll be your children, Gary.
I appreciate
we'll call
that.
you Daddy. And we got something in the works here with where our actual plays. Harrison's prepping a campaign for us, mini campaign. What's going on with that?
Yeah, so I believe in November is the current date. At the moment, we're going to be doing a most probably four-part actual play, because we've done a lot of one-shot actual plays on this podcast, and I really like them. But I just finished listening to the Adventure Zone, not that they needed any more plugging, and I really liked it, and I wanted to do something a bit longer on this show for an actual play. So I started prepping a four-part actual play for these guys. And basically the idea is going to be that these guys are workers in a convenience store, so it's going to be a modern day setting. Obviously, if you've listened to any of my other actual plays in the past, you know that it's not just going to be a bunch of guys working in a convenience store, because that would be extremely boring. There is going to be stuff happening to them. It's not just going to be you sell some cigarettes and booze to people to come in. And it's going to be called the Kings of Convenience. And as far as I remember, yeah, somebody's going to play the manager. And as far as I remember, that's going to be Manuel, if I recall correctly. Yeah, and
exactly.
Then Eric and Gary are going to be the two workers in that store. And yeah, that's basically it.
We have a special guest.
And we have a special guest. Paris Conte, who was on the Savage Therapy episode that we did a while back, is going to be playing with us in that campaign too. So yeah, mini campaign / adventure, whatever you want to call it. And I've been preparing it for quite a while, so I'm really excited for that. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be fun.
I'm looking forward to it. I mean, it was supposed to start at the end of this month, but we had to push it back one more month because, well, Manuel is going to be at a convention that time. So big convention in Germany. What's
really
going on with that, Manuel?
Yeah, it depends on if you're going to pronounce it like I guess like an English speaker would, like Spiel, or as we Germans call it, Spiel. Yeah, which is the German word meaning game. Or it could be used as in, grammar. Like you tell somebody to game, like Spiel, you game. So yeah, it's going to be in Essen this year in Germany. It's, as far as I know, the biggest board gaming convention in all of the world. And I'm going to go there with a group of friends. It's going to be awesome. I'm going to bring my camcorder and my iPhone to do some interviews and some recording, because AAA's games are going to actually be there. So if you've got questions you would like to ask the guys at AAA's games, just send them over to our email address, which you will receive at the end of this
show.
At the end of the show, or in the show notes, or just ask us on Google Plus or something, and I'm gonna go ask the nice guys at AAA's games in your stead. Also, the former exclusive German license holder for Savage Worlds, Prometheus Games, see what I did there, Eric, is going to be there, so I can ask them some questions. I'm going to try to get an interview with them, but we're going to talk about Prometheus Games a bit later in this episode.
Indeed. And you started a new campaign, right, with coworkers?
Yeah, so I found that the company where I work at used to have a role-playing circle, but it has been dormant for quite a while. So I thought, why not try to revive it? And yeah, being the savage nerd I am, I said, yeah, well, I'd like to play some Savage Worlds, guys. So who's in? And some people signed up and never showed up until yet. But that's always a problem with a company that works largely in independent projects. You never know if people are going to be with a client or if they're going to be at the headquarters and being able to play. But so far, we managed to do a steady stream of sessions, about one every 2 weeks. And we are playing the original Rippers plot point campaign. I just opted to play with the rules from Rippers Resurrected, as they are a little more recent and a little more streamlined. I had to make some changes because of some points within the original plot point campaign, which I can't mention on the show because it would be spoilers. But yeah, really going great so far. A lot of fun. Last session, I had only 2 players show up, and it was basically a TPK, but well, they are not dead. They're just incapacitated. Nobody actually died, but so far they're both incapacitated behind enemy lines. So that's going to be fun to pick up next session.
Yeah, that's a very good campaign. I like that one. Even when I ran a mini one last year. And I like the material, the plot point campaign and the Savage Tales from the original better than the resurrected ones. Although, like you, I prefer the updated rules too. I think they're better.
Yeah. And we haven't even started the actual campaign yet. We're still in our introduction game. I don't know. And I opted to run The Third Hand, which is a standalone adventure which was published for the original Rippers. And I must say, it's a really great adventure to get the people into Rippers. It just throws them right into the mix, gives them the right amount of information. It has some clue hunting, some fighting, some social stuff. It's really great.
Isn't that in Egypt?
Nope. Plays in London.
No. London, all in London. I must have it mixed up in another one then. Well, for me, you know what? I haven't really ran Savage Worlds in a little bit. I started a campaign of another game, Mutant Year Zero, with a group of people, and we just started. So far, so good. We're liking it. But yeah, last night I played a game for an GenCon ran by John Steve that we had on the show not long ago. It was like a Savage Predator movie, so we played the crew from the movie. It was fun. He had it set up. Gary's gonna know what I'm talking about with the sound effects. So every time we shot from our weapons, there was, grenade launcher sound and automatic fire, Desert Eagle, all these sounds, and he had all these effects queued up too when the Predator was in the area or people screaming and that kind of thing. That was pretty cool. So I played that.
Did you play that inside of Fantasy Grounds?
Fantasy Grounds Con. I'm guessing, you probably used Fantasy Grounds.
Thanks.
I just didn't run it. And other than that, I mean, just want to give a shout out to a couple of shows. Saving Throw, if you're looking for a professional, entertaining live stream, they do a show called Wild Cards. They run Deadlands. GM's pretty good. The cast is quite entertaining. It's they have it all figured out. Huh? I felt kind of old watching this because they've got sounds going off with people giving them money for cheers and taking shots, and there's a lot of interaction in there in the chat. I felt a bit lost of what the hell was going on, but the actual gaming is quite entertaining. If you're a fan of Critical Role or these kind of shows where you have voice actors and that kind of stuff, they're pretty good. And also a new show that started out a couple months ago. Robert Evans of the GM's Table. He's having these small YouTube videos like Savage Worlds 101. He goes all the way to the basics and teaches the game. So if you think our information is a bit too advanced for you and you want to reel it back a little bit, go check him out. He's got some good stuff in there. And also another YouTube show called Grim Perspectives by Florian Krell, another German fella. It's good to have another voice in the community. I mean, people are aware of the shows that are available, but he brings a different perspective on the game, quite friendly. And yeah, like I said, another voice. Sometimes what we say or what another show says doesn't really help you out. Maybe Florian can help you, and he'll be on the show soon too. I invited him, and we're gonna talk to him. He basically, Manuel's gonna be at Spiel, and another German's gonna walk in and take your place. We're gonna have to ask him. I think he's got tattoos too. He's gonna have to wear a tank top too, and yeah, maybe wear a mask so he looks like you.
Maybe we could just no. We need someone that's different to Manuel. So maybe we could ask him to tone down the accent, maybe cover up the tattoos. Maybe, I mean, because we've already got one.
Clean cut, wear a suit.
I mean, I already hate the fact that we got 2 Canadians on this show. It gets confusing for me.
We don't. Trust me, we don't have 2 Canadians. There's only one Canadian on this show. Another one of us is a traitor that defected to a foreign country.
Oh, shut up, Eric! You're always saying that.
For the show today, we're gonna take it to the edge with a discussion on the teaser from GenCon. If you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, at GenCon Pinnacle had this poster to promote their products, and at the bottom of that poster, they're like, teasers. You can see new core rules, a new cover, and a new cover for the fantasy companion, and one for the horror companion with the same format that the sci-fi and superpowers companion are. These series are like graphic novel format. I think it's 7x10. So they're coming in that format, and there's just going to be some changes to the rules. So far, nothing's been officially announced for that, and no changes have been announced. But we'd like to talk about our wish lists and the wish list from the community too, what people think would be good. So we'll pretty much pretend that our opinion matters, or that we can actually change something and talk about it. Maybe we're going to play a little bit of the Wild Dictionary. It's been a while, so play a little bit of that. But to start with, we've got some words from around the world. So, words from around the world. This is the Kickstarter month, people. Everybody decided to launch their project this month, and some of them are currently online, and some of them upcoming.
So first up, of course, there was Frozen Skies, which was a game all about flying planes and playing any character you like.
Yeah, and we had Steven on the show not long ago, and it looks like his campaign is almost funded right now, just a few £100 left.
So if I recall correctly, on his Kickstarter, if you pay £100, you can go to his house and meet him. I may have misread it, I'm dyslexic, so
Fake
I don't know.
news.
You might be spending an afternoon at the Frozen Skies Kickstarter's place. I got £100.
And next up, of course, there was Titan Effect. We had Christian Nome on the show. Handsome man, sexy voice, great game. superpowered spies, and espionage. That game sounded awesome, didn't it, Manuel?
What?
He wasn't there. Maybe he hasn't listened to the show yet.
Oh, right,
But
yeah.
we had him on the show. And I think he's way over 50% funded now. It started October 3rd, if I remember correctly. And still has a few weeks to go, so go check that one out.
And let me ask you a question, guys. Are you a fan of scientifically accurate sci-fi that is grounded in reality but can still tell an amazing, fantastical story? Well, if so, then go over to 7 Worlds. It's not just one of them, but there's 7 of them.
The best part about 7 Worlds is the torpedoes, to tell you the truth. That was my favorite part.
Yes, yeah, he did mention that you could, that in space, you could launch any material as long as it's going at a decent speed. If it would freeze in space and hit another craft, and Gary did mention that could be any ejected material, whether that be, a pencil or, in fact, fecal matter. So that can be done in 7 Worlds. So that game sounds incredible. And, yeah, go over to that page as well.
Just because of that, just because of torpedo.
No, there's plenty.
There's also there's also the AI assistant too. I thought that was pretty cool. Gary had a lot of fun with that one.
It sounds incredible. Do you like GMing, guys? Do you like screens?
This is a trick question.
Do you like barbarians and beasts? Because you're in for a treat. Because the Beasts and Barbarians GM screen is here to answer all of those needs all at once. Buy it now. Only $9.99.99. I haven't actually looked at the page for this Kickstarter.
It's got everything I like: beasts and barbarians and GMs and screens.
All in one. Who? They said it couldn't be done, but the guys over at whoever makes this screen have been hard working in the lab, and they've done it. Jesus,
I feel like
That's amazing.
but wait, there's more.
yes.
Well,
if you pledge £100, you can go over to their house and meet them.
That's a standard reward level by now, right?
Yeah.
That one's on Indiegogo. Not long ago, Grammel had a campaign for Beast and Barbarian Steel Edition. It was quite successful. I think they were well over $10,000. And what's cool about this one? Well, yeah, you get the GM screen, and then you also get like a little booklet with some rules about astrology in there for your character, and there's something else for the GM too. I don't remember what it is right now, but if you backed the Steel Edition Kickstarter, well, Indiegogo, sorry, with the GM screen, you can fold the shipping of that screen into your Steel Edition campaign, so you don't pay extra shipping for it, which is pretty cool, because it hasn't been delivered yet. I've received the PDF for Steel Edition of the Player's Guide, but it's not complete yet. So instead of shipping separately, they're going to ship the GM screen with it too. And yeah, we were just talking about 7 Worlds. That launches October 17th, and there's another Savage Worlds Kickstarter launching at the same time, same exact day, and it's Monster Hunters Club. This one looks really, really cool.
So for those interested, this isn't the Capcom game where you hunt giant beasts. This is more like Stranger Things, right? Something like that kind of flavor.
Yeah, the Goonies, Stand By Me, 80s kids movies, with monsters, that type of thing. It also reminds me of Tales from the Loop a lot too. That award-winning game. So, yeah, it looks really good.
I'm in.
So yeah, that's as far as I know, that's all the stuff going on this month for Kickstarter and Indiegogo. But earlier in the show, Manuel mentioned Prometheus. What's going on with them? Who are they first, and what's going on?
Well, Prometheus Games used to be the exclusive German publisher for Savage Worlds products, and a little earlier this year, they lost that license due to some delivery problems with translations and crowdfundings they did. So now that license is up for grabs, and the betting pools are absolutely sky high as to who's going to grab that license. My money would be on Ulysses, since I believe Ulysses North America is sharing an office with Shane Hensley.
Who's that?
For some work on hold. If you don't know that, you are on the wrong show, sir.
Oh, right, okay.
So basically, what does this mean for Germany? In the short run, and maybe even in the long run, it doesn't mean that much, because Prometheus are still allowed to sell the product they have in stock, and they are allowed to finish all the projects they have already started and are working on. So it just means they will not be translating any new material that comes directly from Pinnacle. They are still allowed, under the standard Savage Worlds license, to translate Savage Worlds products from other companies, so they can still translate products from, say, Grammel or from AAA's games, because in that case they wouldn't be talking to Pinnacle, they would be talking to AAA's games or to Grammel.
Complicated stuff.
A bit. It was an interesting ride, and well, the German community is really looking forward to seeing who's going to pick up the Savage Worlds license and what they are going to do with it.
All right, well, let's hope for the best for the German community. So it's been 2 years now since the show started out, Wild Eye Podcast with Jamie and Blaine. And coming up in December will be a year since we took over the show. So to celebrate that, we thought it'd be cool to have a little contest. Plus, Christmas is coming up, so with prizes, of course, a contest. So the first prize for this, and we're going to go into what that contest is about, but first prize it's because of Gary. Gary's a nice guy. He's a generous guy. What do you have to give to people, Gary?
The prize is going to be a complete Savage Rifts box set, including the dice, the bennies, the books, the GM screen, all of that good stuff. I went a little stir crazy when Savage Rifts first started coming out, and I bought a bunch of extra stuff. And then after the dust settled, I realized that I had a complete extra box set that I had ordered. So yeah, I'm going to give it away.
Yeah,
and I'm actually going to bring it on the plane to me. So this thing is going to go from wherever it was manufactured to Canada, where it's going to be smothered in maple syrup and my man love, and I'm going to bring it to Con on the Cob and hopefully get it signed. Well, I'm going to forcibly get it signed, so I might be breaking some heads to get that done. And then I'm going to probably bring it back to Canada, where I'll mail it to some lucky contestant.
Just to let you know, that will not be smothered in those things. I want to point that out to anyone listening. It is going to be in very good condition.
But yeah, in case you guys don't know what he's talking about, next month we're going to Con on the Cob, and Sean Patrick Fannin, the guy who wrote Savage Rifts, well, one of the main guys anyway, is going to be there. So we're going to ask him, hey, Sean, do you want to sign this box for our listeners? And then hopefully he'll say yes. Otherwise, what's going to happen to him, Gary?
Who gives up their murder details? Nobody.
Right. So, yep, that's the first prize. Second prize will be a $20 gift certificate for Drive-Thru RPG. And before I talk about the third prize, because it will make more sense. So, a couple episodes ago, we had a show about one-sheet settings, and we showed you how we did it, and we published them for you guys to look at. We're going to make it available. Well, it's still available, but we're going to share the links so you can look at them. So we want you to write a short paragraph what your idea of a good one-sheet setting would be. Could be anything. Don't make it too long because we're busy people. We don't have time to read a lot of stuff. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take your idea, your pitch, and put that in a document and just number it. and then I'm going to turn it over to Manuel, Harrison, and Gary, and they're going to look at them. Then they won't know who wrote that one, whose idea it was, and they're going to come up with the winners, first, second, and third prize. And all the winners, including third prize, well, we're going to write it for you, and we're going to lay it out and publish it under, well, with your approval, of course. But if you submit, you have to approve it, right? You got to be cool about that. Under the fan license, and it's going to be available for everybody. That's about it. Deadline is December 1st at 11:59 p.m. Eastern. That's how long you have to come up with your idea. You email it to us at thewildeye@gmail.com. We'll look it over, pick a winner, and then we'll get in touch with you, send you your stuff, and that's it. That'll be our celebration for 2 years.
Quick question. Before we actually did this competition, Gary offered to send it to me, and then you said, no, let's do a competition. Can I enter so that I can still have a chance to have this?
No.
What?
I feel bad now, all of a sudden, but not really. So to be clear, you don't really have to do much. You basically just have to come up with your idea for a one-sheet setting, throw it down on the piece of paper, write a paragraph about it, and, come up with some interesting idea, like, I don't know, maybe Mr. T ends up in 50 fathoms and you got to find a way to get out or something like that. But you don't actually have to write the one-sheet setting. You just got to give us a short paragraph on a setting idea, and we'll do the work.
Exactly, and then 4 professional idiots will turn it into something great for you. I mean, how awesome is that? And for that, you will get something amazing. If you're good. If you're rubbish, you won't.
Yeah, especially first prize. I mean, that box, how much is that? Isn't that like $100 at least?
Hang on, I've just done the maths. It's £2 million. So, Jesus, you would get... If you sold that, don't sell it though, keep it. It's very good. And it's going to be signed by, what's his name? Sean Patrick Fannin.
Yep.
He's worth £200 million as well himself. So, Jesus Christ. Get entering, guys.
If there's room in the box, Gary will probably put something special, something extra.
Don't tempt him. Enter the competition. Let's go over to the next segment.
Yeah, do it, guys. So, let's play some Wild Eye Dictionary.
Come, children. Follow me, Cinder, the Flame Lord, into my imaginarium. For I have a game that I wish us to play. Words will be selected randomly using dice, and from these words, an idea must be born that our listeners can use in their Savage Worlds games. This is the Wild Dictionary. Enjoy. That hurts.
On this segment, I will generate 2 random words using a random word generator, which I did not make myself. But I'm going to use this, generate 2 random words, and then we're going to use those words to come up with ideas that you can use in your Savage Worlds games. Now, I'm just going to put this, I'm going to generate the words now. Now, this may take several hours, or it could take seconds, but just hold on to your seats, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, it has taken 1 second. So this is Robot Bulletin.
Robot Bulletin, all right. Well... this is a special... this can be a piece of equipment or even an NPC, an extra, and he's a robot, and he delivers missions to you in the form of bulletins. That's all I got.
I actually think that's not a bad idea, though. I was going to go for something similar, but I was going to go for it's in a futuristic setting, right? The robot, he is a news robot, and they deliver news in that way, and they've been hacked. Uh-oh. So suddenly, nobody knows who to trust, and the news is coming through, and your missions are suddenly coming in, and they're false. So these
fake news all over.
Exactly.
It's a fake news machine.
Exactly. So suddenly you're a crime-fighting organization, and you're being told that a bank's being robbed over in the south side of town, and you go over there, and it turns out that the robbers have just hacked the bulletin robot, and that's to distract you, so they're actually robbing the bank on the north side of town. Uh-oh. Robot bulletin. Manuel?
Well, what I could think of is that the it's more like a piece of lore that could exist in a futuristic game where the singularity happened and the robots just developed a consciousness and rose up and rebelled against their human oppressors. And they gave fair warning to all humans and letting them know on all viable channels of communication that robots now were their own masters and would no longer be treated as common household objects or slave. And that communication is now commonly referred to as the robot bulletin.
That's really good. Gary?
It's like Terminator.
I wish I would have paid attention to that last one. I was thinking about some stuff. I actually had I have the added benefit of seeing Blade Runner 2049 last night. So the whole robot premise is actually fresh in my mind. We're going to do a little bit of a play on words, though, as opposed to like being a bulletin. We're going to change robot bulletin to robot bullet in, and you are a group of detectives in the cyber crimes department, and somebody's been going around killing robots, and the only clue you have are the bullets in the robots, and then that's going to lead you down some kind of path to find out maybe who or what is taking out your friends, your robot family, because you're not some kind of oppressor or overlord. You're a friendly human.
You know what? I wish I'd have done the same thing. So it should have been a robot, as in a robot that rows a boat, and robot bullet in.
Wow.
You know, sometimes you get two words that don't go together. I was just saying before we started the segment, I had to re-roll the words because the first one that we got was anticlimactic hat, which was literally impossible to make anything out of. But yeah, I just re-rolled again and I got brutish fellow. So yeah, it's really cool exercise to do. So if you ever feel like you're stumped for things to put into your game, listeners, go to a random word generator and just click it twice and get 2 random words. Can be fun to do.
Yeah, I like it. It was just quick and short and didn't drag on. So
drag on.
I think we're all.
Have you just done
up?
what Gary just did? I think we know what we're all here for. The new edition's coming out soon, so why don't we take it to the edge and let's get to what we want to see from the new rulebook and ting.
Yeah. You're listening to the Wild Die Podcast. 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 Listen 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 to the Wild Die Podcast.
So this is the wish list part because apparently there's a new edition of Savage Worlds coming up by the end of next year, 2018. I've been around I was around when the Savage Worlds Deluxe came out. I think that was 2012 because when I first started reading Savage Worlds and playing it, the Explorers edition had just come out. So it's been a few editions. And last time for Deluxe, for those freaking out, I'm gonna have to buy a new book now. $10. All right, folks, $10.
What about inflation? Maybe it'll be 12.
Yeah, maybe it'll be more. you know, but most RPGs are what now? Like $50, $40, $50, $60?
Yeah, but
Hey,
how much do we know it's going to be this time? You don't know that it's going to be $10 this time. You don't know.
Don't know.
You don't know.
I'd easily pay $30, $40, and I'll tell you why in a little bit. But so it's coming up, and any changes that they're going to make, and why do I know this? Well, also being a Savage Worlds licensee, not that we got a preview, but we were assured by Shane Ansley that the changes will be minor, and whatever changes come out will be available on their site to download for free. Just same thing that happened with Deluxe. All the new rules, updated chase rules, dramatic task, quick combat, all that stuff is available for free on their website. So you're not going to miss out on anything. Any changes will be available to you. You don't even have to buy a new book. So yeah.
It's already a perfect book. Just Harrison's got this look on his face like he's gonna jump through the screen and just.
I mean, I am gonna kick you in the nuts.
Yeah, why come on the show if you don't think anything needs to be changed, Gary? You know.
That's why it's going to take a year. It's going to take a year because they're going to have to go through it with a fine-tooth comb and make sure that they've got all their T's crossed and their I's dotted. And yeah, you know, manual spelling checker can take some time.
Yeah.
Because other than that's perfect.
So, at this point, we have no idea what the changes might be. Just as said, minor, and any official announcement is yet to be made. This was just a teaser, so. Yeah, don't freak out too much. I heard someone talking about a relaunch on Facebook and that kind of stuff because I don't know. Anyway, so what we're going to do is just speculate here or talk about our wish list and also some of the savages from the community. We gathered some comments not long ago. Stefan Dragonspawn made a post on social media asking people what they think needs to be changed in the new edition. So we gathered these comments and we're going to talk about it.
Hell yeah.
Who wants to go first? What's on your wish list?
I never thought I'd say this, but I think I'd like to hear from Gary.
You just need me to give you some good material, don't you?
Hell yeah.
I tell you, when this book comes out, you're going to see me standing outside of my local gaming store. I'm going to be like one of the Jehovah's Witnesses with the Watchtower magazine. I'm going to have a rack of these things, and I'm just going to be handing them out to people as they pass by. Have you heard the good word of our gracious Lord and Savior, Savage Worlds? What do you think of that, Harrison? And then the only thing I'd really like to see changed is maybe a splatter-proof book with some sweet-ass new carbon fiber tech paper, because there's no need to change it otherwise.
Well, you did say something before we started recording that you wanted added to the book, though, didn't you? I mean, I know that I know you're having a little joke here, but there was something that you wanted added to the book, as a little something that you like, because I know that in the book they always say that there's 3 essential settings, you know, modern, sci-fi, fantasy, but there's one that you think is an absolute staple.
Well, all they got to do is really just add a page for 50 fathoms and put it at the front, because it is the lead. What's the word I'm looking? It's the flagship. That's right.
A lot of people think it's Deadlands, but you would disagree with that.
Yeah,
absolutely. Deadlands, Schmedlands. I can go play westerns anywhere.
Yeah, I got some things, some minor, some major. Well, the minor points would be there's some things that are not really consistent in where they are listed in the book. For example, healing and damage should really be in the same chapter, and I believe the optional rules for incapacitation are also located somewhere where you wouldn't expect them to be. So generally, just go over the book and consolidate the information to that you don't have to jump between 3 pages, which are page 13, page 45, and page 130 to find information on one topic. So it's a little annoying, but the more you use the book, and it's not a really big book, so you get the hang of it rather quick. But it is quite annoying if you're starting out and you getting to know the core rulebook.
Or at least maybe a sidebar that at one point a sidebar that kind of consolidates all that information, maybe like a summary of each part, so that once you start reading one part, you get a better idea of the whole picture there.
Yeah, something like that. So what I would really like to see mainly concerns vehicle rules. So I would like to see vehicles streamlined more in line of characters. So maybe give them just standard attributes to calculate stuff from. Just do away with the speed as it is used for vehicles, because it's so annoying to try to get a vehicle on a battle map with people who don't use vehicle speed. Vehicle combat rules, meh. It shows that it came from tabletop wargaming, and I believe it's doing a disservice to pen and paper gaming. So yeah, that I would like to see reworked. And the something that's also struck me as a bit annoying is scale, but that's not necessarily a core book issue. That would be more something like for the new version of the sci-fi companion, because as it stands, if you have a starfighter fighting against some starfighters and some really huge ships, they all use the same scale. So that means the gargantuan ships have to have a toughness in the 80s to 100s to really reflect on how sturdy they are compared to the guns mounted on a starfighter. And that also means you need weapons on capital ships that do like 10d8 damage or something like that. And that really takes out of the speed and the fluidity of the sci-fi games I've played. So what I would like would be some kind of scaling system like West End Games did with Star Wars D6, where you just had thresholds on how much damage a certain scale unit could do to a certain other scale. And you could just have a starfighter scale, a freighter scale, a small ship or big ship, and gargantuan ship scale, and just have a rule that says, yeah, well, if you're a starfighter, basically you can't touch anything that goes over a certain scale. You can't just touch the big ships, except with maybe a special rule if you're packing like proton torpedoes, which go through shields or some shit like that. So yeah,
Can't they get away with this? Can't they just get away with this with heavy armor and heavy weapons?
Kind of, but the problem is that even starfighters can pack weapons with heavy damage quite easily. Would be like a standard torpedo would probably do heavy damage, and then you'd have to have a torpedo which would be mounted on a starfighter, so it would do like 2d4 damage.
Right. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Not saying it's the perfect approach, but it's the one I know of that works, so that's where I would go with it.
I would like to see them hire Sergio Antonio. I don't know if you guys know who he is, but he was the creator of Gru. He's also the guy that does those cool and hilarious little black and white pictures in the tabs of the Mad magazine. They should throw something like that in there for a little added flavor and fluff. That could only make it better. You guys have no idea what I'm talking about, don't you?
Nope, no idea.
You've never read a Mad magazine? In the tabs on the corner of the pages, there was always those little pictures. You say there was some guy that was building a ladder, it would show him building a ladder, and he would be, hammering in the last rung and realized that his ladder was completely out by one rung. It was just a little cartoon depiction.
What would that add to Savage Worlds, Gary?
Flavor and fluff, some comedic aspects.
What I would like to see in the book. I've taken a little. One of the first things that I wanted to speak about was something that Gary B from the Smart Party podcast he mentioned over on the G Plus there. He said that you've got the lock picking skill. This is a very minor one, And he said that he wanted basically to have that incorporated into a whole thievery skill, because a lot of the skills in Savage Worlds are quite broad and kind of they encompass like a wide variety of things that you can do with them. For example, the survival skill. And he basically mentioned that he wanted to see something like that, but for thievery. And I thought that's a great idea. So you could use this for pickpocketing and lock picking, and maybe hiding in the shadows. I mean, maybe that's sneaking. But anyway, my point is that a thievery skill, I think, would be a great idea. So that was just a little one. A major one I wanted to see was kind of cleaning up combat maneuvers. I don't really have a solution for this at all, so don't attack me, But the point is you see things like agility tricks, right? When you do one of those, it's one really simple mechanic where you do an agility trick and it's done, right? Whereas with combat maneuvers and things like this, there's like a million of them, and most of the time when I sit down with new players, I'm not just going to sit down and tell them all of these combat maneuvers because it's boring and there's too many of them. I would like to see combat maneuvers dealt with in a more elegant way, where you could just do them in a more simple way, and there's less of them maybe, or there's one overriding mechanic of how to do cool combat maneuvers, because there are other games that are able to do that in a cool way with one simple mechanic. I don't know how to do it because I'm an idiot, but nonetheless I would like to see that. And another point I wanted to make is that we've got loads of really cool powers in the Savage Worlds rulebook, and for other settings you tend to trap those differently and just apply them to other settings, which is awesome. But I've been using the same ones for ages now and just want to see some more. There's nothing wrong with the ones we've got, and I feel like we've got plenty to use for every setting, and the amount of ways you can trap them is perfectly fine. It would just be cool to see some more, that's all. Is that cool? Is that fine?
More is better. Yeah.
Exactly. And the last one I wanted to say was maybe a big or a better consolidated GM's advice section. Specifically, I thought that it would be nice for them to mention that you can combine other books. Like, if you want, take some stuff from this book and put them together, because for some reason I know that it can get unbalanced and stuff like this, but I think it should just advise people that you can do that, and that if it gets unbalanced, balance it yourself, and loads of little bits of advice like that, and how to do stuff like that as a GM, and little bits of advice and how to go beyond the book and make your own stuff as a Savage Worlds GM. Because I see a lot of people in the community only sticking to the books and only doing stuff if you can buy it as a book. And I think it would be nice for a GM's advice section of how to go beyond the book and make your own Savage Worlds stuff, and to create stuff using other books and putting stuff together. So I think that would be really nice, because that is possible to do in Savage Worlds, and I think it's one of the system's biggest strengths, and I think it would be nice to have a big section of advice on how to do that. And just the GM's advice section in general, because I feel like a big part of the reason that we even do this podcast, and a lot of podcasts about Savage Worlds exist, is because that's kind of a void that exists in the book and is something that's entirely necessary for Savage Worlds, and it would be nice if that was just in the book to begin with, or at least better advice was in the book.
Alright, is it my turn now? Yeah.
Yes, Eric, now you can go. No, you're last.
Yeah, it's my turn.
Shut it.
Alright. Well, I mentioned something about maybe paying a bit more for a reason, and for me, one of the main things is the presentation. I mean, it's functional, and for $10, you can't ask too much, knowing the realities of publishing a little bit. I can understand you can only do so much, but when you compare it to other games coming out, especially the real modern ones, I mean, look at the stuff coming out of Fantasy Flight or these big companies. Their books look amazing. The cover, the artwork, the trade dress, the layout, it looks amazing. And I think Savage Worlds can do that now at this point. We're 14 years in, something like that. It's almost 15. I think it's time to upgrade. Pay the artists, get some good artwork in there, not just the same old thing. Stock art. I think it would raise the profile of Savage Worlds, but like I said, at the same time, you can't do that and offer a book for $10. So that's why personally I'd be willing to pay $40 for hardcover if needed, with good artwork and an amazing cover that people will grab and be like, yes, that looks awesome, I want to play this, instead of just being, that looks a bit bland, so that's the first thing for me. Then something else that's been mentioned by a lot of people, the index, a better index, so you can find what you need more easily. Like Harrison, was it Harrison or no, it was Manuel that said earlier that it's kind of a small book, so things are relatively easy to find, but still, it could be helpful. The next thing, new chase rules. So all you f***ers can quit whining about it, because I'm tired of hearing it.
Tell us how you really feel, man.
Yeah, right. Personally, I don't have a problem with it. I did at first, and then I kept going at it, kept running chases, and kept getting better at it and understanding it better. And it is one of the mechanics I like best. So I don't have a problem with it. I could use it as is, but hey, if that many people whine about it and don't get it or don't like it, I think it's a sign that it needs to change. I can't really, I can't suggest anything, because I think all chase rules in every game kind of suck.
I was literally just about to say that, because whatever they changed it to, nobody's going to be happy. I was talking about this last night with a couple of my friends, and we were talking about the ones in quite a few games, and I think you say that you want it to be changed so that nobody whines about it. I think be careful what you wish for, because it will change and people will whine about it. It's just going to be the same forever. I think what they should do is just cut them out entirely, and then people will whine that they're not there.
If you're going to go with the $40 price tag on this, I want somebody to show up at my house and hold my hand through chase rules. That's what I want for $40.
Yeah, but let's move on. Something else, the trappings. Everybody talks about trapping. You get online, you ask how to do this, someone says, well, just use trappings on this, but yet you open the book and there's 2 pages for trappings in the book, and it's only for the powers. And they say it's just the flavor how you describe it, but then they give you trappings, elemental trappings, basically, for some powers. I want to see that expanded to skills, to edges, hindrances too, because when you think about it, take mean and ugly hindrances. What they do, -2 to charisma. It's the same hindrance, just a different trapping to it, but it needs explained, maybe, or maybe I need to reread the book and it's in there black on white. I don't know, but I don't remember that part.
It just reminds me of something that I was going to say earlier. You're talking about the price of the book. I was down visiting my buddy Jay at Nerd Haven last night, and it just happens to be the aisle that you stand in when you're talking to him at the cash register is the D&D aisle, and every book was on top of it. There was 7 or 8 different books out, and every one of them was $50 or $60. So I'm looking at it and I started doing the math, and with the 5th edition books that are out, you're looking at spending $300 and some odd if you were to buy them. I'm sure you can get it on Amazon for cheaper, but and then I happened to glance down and see the Starfinder book, and I was looking at it because it's just a release that had just recently come out. Man, it is a beautiful piece of work. What a specimen, and the artwork is fantastic. The layout of the book is really nice. I think they did a great job putting it together. But as I picked it up, I'm like, holy crap, this book is heavy. And I got to the end of the book and it's 520 some odd pages.
Yeah.
Like, are you effing kidding me? And just like you were saying, well, what's the difference between the mean and whatever the other one you were talking about, just the trappings? It's that book, is 520 pages of just different spells and the same thing told over and over again, just to sort of fill up pages in a book. So a lot of times I feel like the trapping section, I know it's really only 2 pages, and sure they should expand on it so that everybody really gets a good feel for what the trapping is, because it is such a big part of how to play Savage Worlds and how to take the simple set of rules and just change the way that they feel through trappings. But I find that, I guess the point I'm trying to make is that when you look at other of the more popular settings and stuff like that, they don't have a simple 2-page setting called trappings that they really could have. And here's the spells that you get. Instead, they just write down every single spell that they can think of to make 520 freaking pages and sell you a $70 or $80 book that you don't need.
Yeah, they do the work for you. That's what it is. But at the same time, if you don't want to do that and keep the page count down, I mean, maybe explain it so that people can do that themselves better. And that leads to the next part, and it's something that Harrison talked about earlier. Better guidelines to make your own settings or to mix them. Specifically, what's the value of X? All right, let's look at an edge. Let's say noble. So noble, you get +2 charisma, you get the benefit of rich, and then there's basically a hindrance folded into that. Break that down for us. Explain what went behind the creation of that edge, what everything is worth, so that we can build our own with this. If you go online, and we had him on the show, Richard did that for everybody. Should it be someone from the community doing that? I mean, to me, the creators should be doing that for us. They tell us kind of in generic terms how to make your own setting, to trim the fat, to just put what's important, but mechanically there's nothing there. What's 2d6 damage worth? What's the value of that amount of toughness or that kind of thing? It doesn't have to be an essay 200 pages long, but they do it with racial abilities already. They tell you what each ability is worth if you want to create your own race, and it doesn't take a whole lot of room in the book, right? It's just a couple pages. Do that for edges, hindrances, equipment, that kind of thing. I'd like to see that. Like Harrison was saying, big draw to Savage Worlds is that you can create your own stuff. So just with one book, well, give us more tools to do that. And even the publishers, the writers, the game designers, that would help quite a bit. Because right now, I know in my circles, people go to see what Mr. Richard Woolcock did, because that's all you can find, and that's all you get. And he's really good, but if let's do it too. I'd like to hear pick Clinton Black's brain on this.
I think you're going to find that in the book. I think you're going to see that over the last couple of years that this has been out in its current form. Maybe one of the problems that they did is in their effort to not so much to reduce the page count. I feel like Savage Worlds is basically, they've taken the turkey, put it in the pot, and just boiled it down to its lowest common denominator. They didn't give you any of the extra fluff, and it seems like that's kind of what you're asking for. Maybe they distilled it a little too much, and they need to bring it back a little bit and maybe fluff it up. Maybe it's like a flat pillow.
Not quite. I mean, it's in certain areas where they've cut down some crunch, and that's perfectly fine. But I mean, what I would like is, I feel like there's a lot of ambiguity in a lot of areas where it leads to like arguments online. Certain players do it this way and certain players do it another way. And I think that what would be nice is, say for instance, there are a lot of games out there, for example, DCC RPG in the book, which say things like, as long as you're having fun, you're doing it right. And maybe give some examples of different ways to do it. And it would be nice to have sections in the book like that. And like you say, Gary, bits of fluff or advice and things like that. Because I feel like the book is sorely missing examples of just ways different ways to interpret the rules, or just advice, and like I feel like that's all it is. It's not that I mind the fact that it's boiled down to quick ways to do things. That's fine, keep it like that. It's just that all I would like is maybe some GM advice so that shit just stops getting misinterpreted, and that people would just maybe could agree on some things, or have some advice on ways to do things. Because I feel like a lot of this game, as great as it is once you get it, if you're a new GM, it can be really hard to get into. Now it's going to be easy as long as you've played a couple of games of it first, but often that isn't the case. If you only play with your friends and stuff like this, and you've seen this game and you just have to GM a game of it straight up without having played it before, then you're going to have a hard time. And I feel like if you had a good section telling you some advice, then that would be way easier. Because Nick, who used to be on this show, he GM'd it straight up without ever having played a game of it before, and for the first few sessions we struggled, man, and we had a lot of looking at the rule book, a lot of like misinterpretation of rules, a lot of having to look up stuff and things like this. And if I've played a lot of other games where I started day one having never played a game of it, having never GM'd a game of it, and because of good advice sections and good writing in the book of how to interpret rules, I was able to just play it straight away without any hiccups. And Savage Worlds is not one of those.
Clear rules, definitely. And I think that gets better with every edition. Clint keeps an eye while he's really involved with the forums, where a lot of questions pop up, and whatever comes up the most, it will get fixed or clarified in the rules. And even right now, like the shaken and wound, how many wounds per raise, that rule, there's so many people that don't get it right, and even people I played with for years, that turns out they got it wrong, and it's because it's not clear enough. I got it because someone explained it to me. If no one had explained it to me, I'd probably be doing it wrong also. Some people think if you're shaken and you get a shaken and one wound, you end up with two wounds, because the two shaken stacks and then the wound, which causes two wounds. But it's regardless, it's still one wound per raise, even if you were shaken before. And this was broken down, I believe, in one GM screen, the last parsec, that explains it better. I'm pretty sure this will make it into the next edition, and it will be clear for everybody.
I've just realized I've just been doing it wrong all this time.
Now I'm just more confused.
No, I'm just joking. I'm joking.
And like Harrison said earlier, it seems some of these podcasts, and I'm thinking of the Savage GM podcast, they're there and people listen to them because the rules are lacking, explanations are lacking, tips on how to run this game, because it's a different beast. It really is, and
It's
these
very
guys,
open
that's
to
what
interpretation.
they do. Yes, and I think everybody appreciates them doing that, and they should keep doing it. But at the same time, I feel this should be the writers, the game designers' responsibility to make sure that that's taken care of, even if that means more pages in the book and $20 or $30 instead of 10.
I agree. If you have a game that's open to interpretation and that's a core part of your game, then offer a few examples in your book. I'm going to sound like a fanboy, but again, DCC RPG is another game that's open to interpretation a little bit, and it does exactly the same thing, and it offers a couple of examples in there. With experience, it basically says you can basically do it how you want, but it basically gives you a few examples in there and says, here's a couple of ways you can do it, but do it how you like. And that's kind of the sort of thing I'm after, and would love to see with a couple of things in there.
And the last couple things, those aren't my suggestions. Those are things I found on that post, on Stefan's post, and that I think are good. And we didn't even cover Fantasy Companion, the fact that a lot of these powers in the Fantasy Companion ended up in the Savage Worlds Deluxe book. So that will leave a void in that book. What's going to happen with that, we could have another segment for this, but we're kind of going over here. So for the suggestions, one I liked quite a bit was a box set with the companions. Since they're all going to be the same format, the same size, offer a box set with all of them. I'd buy it. Even if I already have the sci-fi companion and superpowers. And I'm sure Gary would buy 3 maybe.
Was just thinking about what you were talking about there. There is a couple of spots in the book where they do the double negative. Or when you first read it, you're like, oh, gain a -2, and you're like, wait a second, this says gain. To me, gain means like a benefit, but you're actually getting a negative. There's a few spots like that, and I was sort of just mulling over the healing thing that Manuel was talking about, and you actually are right. There's a healing section for mechanical healing, bandages and stuff like that has some information on how things work, and then there's another part for casting spells and how that works, and those two are like miles apart inside the book. But anyways, I would buy it.
But it's
they work different. Another rule too is the suppressive fire. I don't play that many games with guns, as I found out last night. I learned the blind fire rule last night because I rarely play with guns, but a lot of people don't like this suppressive fire roll, which is just a spirit roll. And if you roll a 1, you get hit by a bullet. And especially now with the new shaken rule, where you get to act a lot faster, where it might not be as useful. I can understand where people are coming from. A lot of people are asking for more edges and hindrances. That's always good. But then again, you have the core rules, and then you get your setting, and your setting usually has more edges and hindrances. So I think that's where you get the more. That's just my opinion there. Oh, something else too I want to talk about. I'll try to make it quick. Tricks and test of wills. That was one of the big draws for me playing Savage Worlds, how someone not built for combat can actually be useful in combat. But now with, like I just mentioned, the fact that you get to act much faster with the new shaken rule, I think it's not as useful as it used to be. Maybe add more options there for tricks and test of wills. I'm looking at Totems of the Dead, which is a setting, and they have alternate test of wills options and tricks too, so that instead of causing -2 to parry, you cause -2 a -2 penalty to that target to attack next round. Same with Test of Wills. Instead of giving you a +2, it gives your enemy a -2. And even how about the +2 from Test of Wills that you're able to give it to someone else in the party? Because it's all about the order of combat, right? And a lot of people don't work as a team. And I think it would encourage people to do it a bit more if they could hand those bonuses out to other people. That's just me, and maybe some more cool stuff too. Who knows? I like Harrison earlier. I don't have that many good suggestions right now, but I think if they revamped it a little bit, made it more cool, because that's the draw, right? When I play, if my weapon deals 2d6 damage, and I know that the guy right after me is a big brute with d8 plus d10 damage with an axe or something, and then we're fighting someone with 10 or 12 toughness, I'm not going to try to beat the guy up with my sword. I'm going to do an agility trick or a test of wills to try to shake them, thus making it easier for the guy right after me to take it down. But yeah, I digress there a little bit. I think we covered a lot of ground, a lot of suggestions.
So basically, what we're saying is here that none of us like this game. It's rubbish. Change it all.
except Gary. Gary was the nicest.
No, Gary doesn't like it because the thing is, he's saying that basically the fundamental setting is missing from the book. We all want it different.
50 fathoms. Yeah.
It needs 50 fathoms. Right. End of story.
Neat. It'd be on the cover.
Well, you think about Savage Worlds of Solomon Kane or Pirates of the Spanish Main. That's what it was. It was a setting with all the rules in it. I'm not sure personally if I'd want to pay, that much and have the same rules every time I want to buy a new setting. But for the core rules, that might be a good idea to have, or at least maybe a mini setting included so people know how to build one.
That would be cool. I have to say, it might be nice to have some optional ones like that, because I quite like the draw of having that book like that. Solely because I'm thinking around Christmas time, for certain people that don't own the Savage Worlds rulebook, but my RPG nerd friends, if you were to buy them that all-in-one package of the Savage Worlds rulebook with the setting included, it's kind of cool. But I doubt they'll probably ever start doing that again, but it's still kind of cool.
All right, well, people, if you have your own suggestions, mail them over to us. We'll try to do a feedback section for the next episode if we do get feedback.
Yeah.
And I think we covered a lot of ground there. Let's wrap it up.
Could we possibly infringe on copyright and put out a Wild Die version of the Savage Worlds core book when it comes out?
We'll call it Scary World.
Wild Dry.
Yo, motherfuckers, you all best back up. I always got a gun, I always come strap up. This ain't a game of pool, it ain't no time for no rack up. It's the motherfucking time for the motherfucking wrap up. Anyone who disagrees will get smack up. See me back in school when I should have learned to add up. Found a gun on the floor, instead I picked that up. Anyway, sorry, I'm motherfucking back up. What I'm trying to say is it's time for the wrap up. Yeah, this one goes out to all the ladies and all the men out there. Everyone in the front row, grease up. Yeah. Oh yeah.
So, if you want to get in contact with us, just remember that you can. Manuel, how do you do that?
Well, if you want to contact us, you can email us at thewilddie@gmail.com. You can hop over onto our Google Plus page. You can find us under The Wild Die Podcast, where you can also find the Nerds International community. You can find us on Twitter at The Wild Die, and you can find and support the show on Patreon at www.patreon.com/thewilddie. At this point, we would like to thank our existing Patreons: Sean Richer, Zovia, the amazing map lady, Tony Fanning, Rob Towell, John Peterson, myself, David Maurice Garrett, James Clark, Peter Beckett, Peter Adams, Tom Lewis, I don't know. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for messing up your name, dude. Perry Chalmers, the Digital Dungeon Master, Stefan Dragonspawn, Eli Kurtz, Matthew J. Hansen, Want Some Beats, Matt Stark, John Steve, Pure Mongrel, Owen Lean, and Andy Hall. And we would like to give a very special welcome to our newest Patreon patron, Christopher Gray. Welcome and thank you for your support. You are awesome.
Christopher
Thank
Gray,
you.
I
Welcome.
heard Christopher Gray, he's actually the strongest man alive.
All right, so this is Eric saying, short mobsters get paid under the table.
And this is Harrison saying, grapple the skies.
And this is Manuel saying, if you shoot into a forest with suppressive fire, do the trees get spirit rolls?
This is Gary. Keep your pants on. Keep it fun. Thanks, everyone. We're out.
The Wild Eye Podcast is not affiliated with or endorsed by Pinnacle Entertainment Group or official Pinnacle licensees. Any of the products mentioned on our show or appear on our website are the property and copyright of the respected owners. All music and artwork is used with permission of Pinnacle Entertainment Group. All items are used under fair use and educational and review purposes. All other items are the intellectual property of the Wild Eye Podcast.